All right, folks, we have a lot going on today. Chuck Hagel testifying before the House committee on his decision to sign off on the deal that freed Sergeant Bergdahl and took 5 Taliban leaders and sent them back. We also, of course, have the primary defeat yesterday of the sitting House Majority Leader, Republican from Virginia, Eric Cantor. And we are just moments, actually seconds, away from being joined by Congressman Tim Huelskamp, as I mentioned. And he will give us his very important and unique take on what happened there. And, of course, he is the Tea Party congressman, as they call him. So why don't we both, Congressman, you and I, watch this, and then we'll start.
Here's my fear that Washington will think it's about one issue and one individual and one office. But what happened in Virginia last night represents the concern all across America. Conservatives are afraid that the Republican establishment has left them behind, and they sent a message last night. And let's hope Washington listens this time.
All right. When you say let's take that statement by you a little bit apart. You're afraid that people might think it's just immigration and it's more than that. Is that what you're saying?
It is a lot more than that. This is part of the leadership team, and it's not just about Eric Cantor. It's about the Speaker. It's the Majority Leader. It's an entire Republican establishment in Washington that got their positions because of a Tea Party wave, then spent the last 3.5 years running away from that, and have left conservatives high and dry and worrying and wondering about Republicans in Washington, whether they believe what they claim to believe. And last night, the folks in the 7th District of Virginia said, we don't think Eric Cantor's what he promised to be. And so that's the battle in Washington. Are these folks going to listen and return and fight for conservative principles, or are they going to continue to ignore that and not only lose elections, but more importantly lose some real battles we have going on, and we should be taking on this president? Eric Cantor spent more time beating up on Tea Party conservatives than he did beating up on the president.
Yeah, as did Boehner.
Still going on, but this reflects again on John Boehner as well, because the Speaker is the most powerful man in the House, and the Majority Leader essentially, in my mind, works for him. And here we are. The folks are going to say it's just about him. But if we want to not only win in November, most importantly, we want to make changes. We want to actually move forward and promote and put into law conservative principles. We've got to push. And that's what the voters in Virginia said last night. We're tired of standing by and letting this president take over the nation.
And how do you think leadership will react? Have you heard anything today? As I know you were you met with your caucus. I don't know if it was the Tea Party caucus or the entire Republican caucus, but what's been the reaction from your fellow congressmen and women today?
Well, I think there were probably a few of them that had convinced themselves that conservatives didn't matter much anymore, and I think they woke up this morning with a little fear and trepidation in their hearts. Now, I don't know if the Speaker's thinking that and other leaders, but gosh, don't forget this guy had unlimited money to beat someone who was completely unknown. He got battered and beaten. Cantor just got beat bad, and so some of these folks worry about their political futures, and others just think they're above it all. So it's hard to say where they're at. But if the Speaker was still in full control of the Republican conference and was able to impose his will, we would have a new majority announced today. That doesn't seem to be the case. So that seems to me that folks in Washington are starting to be worried about what grassroots conservatives across the country are thinking, which makes it a pretty darn good day.
You agree with Eric Cantor's move to announce his resignation from that leadership post effective July 31st, or should he have done it effective today? What's your take?
Well, this is just a few minutes before we walk into that meeting, and I have no thoughts on when he should or shouldn't. But I just tell you, we need to replace, I believe, a whole new leadership team. We need some folks committed to Republican principles that are willing to spend more time going after the president and his regulatory agenda, his executive orders, and fighting those things, pushing Obamacare. And the voters in Virginia told Eric Cantor, you weren't doing enough. We didn't buy the line that you said you were against amnesty. Meanwhile, up here you're promoting that for young folks. You're promoting amnesty. People are smarter than Washington gives them credit for. Thank goodness. And so we'll see how this plays out. But at the end of the day, voters across America, not just conservatives, not just Republicans, they want folks in Washington willing to fight for them, willing to stand up for what they believe, willing to stand up and fight for what they say they believe in back home. That's an issue of integrity, and it's just pretty shocking that someone so geographically close to the district has lost their way and got kicked out. But whether or not you like Eric Cantor or not, I think everybody can say we like a system where elections have consequences, and they certainly did last night.
Now the debate in the media, of course, the Tea Party's lost influence. The Tea Party has influence. The Tea Party. What does this say anything about the Tea Party, or does this speak to general dissatisfaction with the leadership, in your view?
I think it shows without a doubt the Tea Party and the rest of the conservative movement is alive and well. And for 2.5 years, maybe longer, the mainstream media and people like Eric Cantor have written obituaries. They have placed stories trying to convince people that conservatives don't matter anymore. They have run candidates against conservatives. They've attempted to shut off money to conservatives, and he got beat. And this shows you that the narrative they were trying to promote, somehow what they were saying was more important than the reality. But the reality is Republicans in particular, conservatives most directly, are worried about the future of this country, and it's time Washington listened and pushed back against the radical agenda of this president. But sitting back, complaining about the president and doing nothing, that's what I think the voters of Virginia said they had enough.
Does this open the door, Congressman, for real change for the next speaker, the next majority leader? I mean, do you see the change not only in policy, but the change in policy brought about by the real change in leadership come next session?
I think it leads to that. And again, it's not about one position that nobody really knows what a majority leader does. But all they know was the Republican establishment wasn't doing enough. And so again, this reflects on the speaker, reflects on the majority leader and the folks underneath him all the way down the line. So what have you been doing? What are you fighting for? Again, you had in this case a candidate, majority leader, claiming he was against amnesty, even though he was promoting the bill, saying he was against outrageous spending, but voting for every debt ceiling increase almost. And it goes on and on. People are tired of that. Republicans are tired of that. And unless the Republicans in Washington get that, there's going to be millions of Republican conservatives that are going to say, you know what? Why should I vote in November? I still think we'll have a Republican control of the House, perhaps the Senate, but it's high time we stood up and said what we're going to move forward on. We're going to have an alternative Obamacare on the floor. Eric Cantor and John Boehner won't let us. Let's actually put a border security bill on the floor. Let's actually take on the president and his illegal actions on immigration. Let's actually do that. Oh, no, we can't do that now. We're going to wait till next year. And I think the voters of Virginia said we're tired of excuses. It's time for action.
So immigration reform, as it's been spoken about by Cantor and the leadership, is dead, but border control you would like to see. Am I accurately describing what you think?
That was what they've been promising all along, and was border security first. And but here's what does worry me, that insiders in Washington, and not just the politicians, they saw what happens when the people home think you're promoting amnesty in a House contested primary. I worry about a lame duck session after the election where these folks try to sneak an amnesty through, because they know the only time you can do that through the U.S. House under Republican control is right after an election. So we're going to be watching that very closely. So, this might embolden them to do things they know they would never do if they had a majority in a Republican majority in the Senate.
And what do you make of what's going on in these refugee camps where they're dumping these children? I understand now they're being moved all over the country, not just where we've thought them to be located. Health concerns and other concerns. You believe this is a calculated move by President Obama?
I think it is due to his decision, and there were very few members of Congress that said anything when he had a crass attempt to round up votes before the 2012 election. I think Eric Cantor was silent. John Boehner was silent. Kevin McCarthy was silent. The Republican leadership in the Senate were silent. There were just a couple of students says, Mr. President, you don't have the authority to waive immigration laws. And he has sent a green light to all across Central and South America and certainly Mexico. Just come here and we'll take care of you. Now the Senate response is to spend another $1.9 billion. I mean, when are we going to hold the president accountable for a humanitarian crisis he has helped create? Now, did he mean to do that? There were those who suggested this would occur. You tell people you can get away with illegal activity, usually they're going to do it.
Yeah. One more for you, and I've asked you this before, but it seems more pertinent than ever. Down the road next year, perhaps Speaker Huelskamp?
Well, I have a family at home, and I prefer to spend more time there than Washington. But gosh darn it, when this nation's in the balance, we're going to keep the fight up. And no, I don't see that anytime soon, if ever. But I'm hoping we'll have a conservative team. at least by next January, sitting here and say, okay, here's where we're going to move this country, here's where we're going to save America, and I still have optimism we can get that done.
Congressman, thank you so much. I know it was a terribly busy day for you. Thank you very much.
You bet, Steve.
Take care. Tim Huelskamp, ladies and gentlemen. They call him the Tea Party Congressman. Don't you know? Howard Cosell. I had to get a Howard Cosell imitation in there. All right, when we come back, the panel. And this is a large Mullsburg panel. You will not want to miss the large Mullsburg panel. I promise you. And we're going to talk about Cantor. We're going to talk about the immigration. And we're going to talk about Benghazi and more. Don't go away.